It's the Morning Marketing Machine, here to grow your e-commerce business with proven marketing strategies and tactics, so you can run your business with machine-like precision. My name is Douglas Levin. Let's dive in. Welcome to Morning Marketing Machine, and I have a very special guest today. Lonny James is one of co-founders, I think co-founders, right, of Lonny James. They are a great e-commerce company. We're actually in a mastermind together, so I think we came in around the same time, I think. And he's just had amazing success with Lonny James. If you guys are around the space, you probably have started to hear a lot more about them. Lonny's been very open about his journey. I think there's even videos out there kind of talking a little bit about about your year. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Happy to be here, Douglas. Yeah, I think we both got into our mastermind around the same time. It must have been, wow, a couple years now.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Yeah.
A couple years now. And yeah, thanks for the nice intro.
Yeah. I mean, you've been doing awesome. So I guess for people that may not know, it's getting a lot fewer now. Can you tell people how you got started in e-commerce and kind of what you're doing now?
Absolutely. E-commerce just kind of fell in my lap, just because I think it's the natural progression of business, right? Like, I think it's just soon everybody will be in that space if they're not already, at least in like a little fashion. But always an entrepreneur. When I grew up, like, had a bunch of different businesses, kind of little stuff that failed and didn't work out. And when I was in college, I really had my first experience with like true entrepreneurship. I had a yogurt shop that didn't work out. Turns out, like, in college, like, if you have a yogurt shop, you really want to give away free yogurt to the people that you like, but that's not good for profits, right? And then secondly, I had a website called clearmyguilt.com. It was kind of like a text from last night type website, more of like entertaining content. And what we did on that website is we were an online confessional. So people would message in, and they would tell us about things that they felt guilty about, and then we would show it to the public, and the public would crowdsource it with a forgivable, forgivable or unforgivable, kind of like or dislike. Mm-hmm. And based on that, it got plugged into a bunch of different categories. One was heaven, one was hell, one was limbo, and it took off. It did really, really well. We hit a point where we're getting 100,000 hits a day, and we got some press on it. And long story short, that didn't work out either. So, but it was kind of like my first real experience with like a little taste of success. And my background is food. My mom was a manager in a natural food store, and so like at my home, where I come from, if I came home with a joint, it wasn't a very big deal. But if I came home with a bag of Doritos, it was like the end of the world, you know? And so I knew food, like I knew healthy food. Like I drank kombucha way before it was cool. And yeah, so I went to school, long story short, and I ended up my first job with a food distributor, a healthy food distributor. And that really opened my eyes to like all of these amazing products and all of these startups, you know, producing stuff out of sustainable proteins and specialize and creating things that are specific to what I call today as a food tribe, meaning like a specialty diet or a specialty allergy. And I also started to see the growth in the specialty diet category. So within the United States, there's 89 million Americans who fit into one diet or another. And when we talk about diet, we mean vegan, gluten-free, keto, something, or someone in their immediate family is kind of the breakout for that. And so I saw this market, right? I was like, this like under served market. And that was these specialty diets. And so what I did is I started meeting these brands at this food distribution company. And I was like, hey, like maybe I can create like a super high-end vending machine and put them in places where, you know, you've got people who eat Whole Foods for lunch or buy their groceries from Whole Foods. and I can provide a service that doesn't really exist. So I ended up designing vending. I got into designing vending machines and creating them and sold them into law firms and high-end apartment complexes and different things like that. And I sold my day job because I had still have a ton of student loans and those types of things. They're much lower now, but so I filled vending machines every night until sometimes 2, 3 a.m. And yeah, that's really how I got into it. Long story short, I have 0 vending machines today. Uh, it's kind of one of those things, like, right, and you probably know this, we get into business and the thing that got us there isn't where we end up usually.
Mhm.
But what the great thing about it is it gets you where you need to go, right? So like that positive action, that right action finally gets you where you need to go. And um, an acquaintance of mine, friend of mine, and I started talking more and more about, like, because the logistics of the vending machines is horrible,
Mhm.
right? Like just vending machine companies in general. There's maintenance on the machines. There's fees from the credit card readers. There's physically bringing the product into the machine and the customer service that goes along with vending machines, which are almost all ancient. And it just wasn't a good business model. And so started kind of thinking about the idea of doing like corporate gifts and like maybe, there's a way to provide, to put the products that we're using into, gift boxes or boxes.
Mhm.
And we also needed a way for the vending machines to buy inventory cheaper. I was storing it all in my closet in my apartment, and it was a huge mess. And super long story short, we made our first few listings online, and we did more in a day than I could do in a month
Mhm.
in a vending machine. And it was an easy decision after that.
Mhm.
And sometimes we make stupid mistakes. I kept those vending machines for 2 years after that and still filled them. So before selling the route.
Yeah. So you talked about, obviously, and there's a lot to talk about over what you were just talking about, but you were talking about how you pretty much failed at a couple of them, even though you had a little bit of success. So obviously we talk a lot about mindset. So what goes into this in your head at that point? Like you talked about how you've been an entrepreneur all your life. When you're not having success at that point, a lot of people would have given up, right? At that point. So what keeps you going? Like, because I'm assuming at that point that's what ultimately led to Bunny James, is what you were talking about in terms of the vending
Yeah.
machines, and then everything led to that. But like as you were saying there, it wasn't like it happened overnight, and there was a lot of failure along the way. So what keeps you going when you're putting in all that time and effort in? You were just talking about two or three other projects that you were working on where it didn't quite work out. You had like little bits of success here and there, but it just wasn't what you were thinking it would be. So what keeps you going?
I think I would love to say sheer perseverance and desire. And I think that's maybe what some people say when they really don't think about what the driver is. I think as I've evolved as a person, there's more of that today. But when I look down to it, man, when I really look at it, it was out of fear.
Mhm.
Um, wanting to prove myself, to prove to others around me, to where I grew up, to just show my network and acquaintances that, like, I was capable,
Mhm.
that I could build something that could be successful. And also, like, it helps to be working on what you're really passionate about, like the whole food space. And I grew up in a home where there were so many diets and allergies. Like my mom had to cook like 2, 3 dinners sometimes, like,
Mhm.
well, one was vegan, I'm lactose intolerant, my sister is celiac, my mom is like allergic to weird stuff like eggs and bananas, so there was just always this, like, and when you get sent a gift box, it's a mess for a family with a bunch of different allergies, right? So,
Mhm.
but I think to truly answer your question, I think fear pushed me through, man, and I think, unfortunately, and I hope to continue to work on this, but I think it's still probably the biggest motivator, right?
Mhm.
And I think if you asked a lot of entrepreneurs, like, deep down, Why? Because it's not easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and continuously gets harder
Hmm.
as it grows. I would say it's fear.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think people don't really think about too, is like when you're talking about being the hardest thing you ever do, I've heard this before, like you talk about how Bill Gates is up to this level or whatever it is, but he started it off at like way below our level when he got started, and it's just that you get to this level and you then you have a bigger set of problems as you go through. It never stops. Like so
No.
you're dealing with that right now, right? It's just a new set of problems that you have to deal with.
Yeah, and I think like it requires a lot of self-care
Mhm.
in ways like, right, I can tell you that fear is a huge motivator for me.
Mhm.
And it's honestly like when my alarm goes off, it's what gets me out of the bed. But I've got a lot of tools now over the years that, I work through that, right? I have a lot of like self-care practices now that, bring me back to reality where like at this moment right now, talking to you, I feel pretty good,
Mhm. So,
but it takes a lot of work for me to get there.
so since you brought that up, I wanted to, can I ask you, what are some of the self-care that kind of have helped you? Because I mean, you're not the only person. Like, obviously, as doing this show, and interviewing a lot of people that are like you are, like in terms of level of success. Um, I think that answer that you were saying would be like the generic answer of I just persevered. Nobody does that, and they have, like you were saying, they have fear or they have whatever it is that gets them.
Hmm.
Like it either gets to them or is that driving factor. So what self-care has helped you when you're in those situations?
Yeah, and I wish I would have picked this stuff up so much earlier. So much earlier. I could have saved a lot of pain. Uh, Meditation daily for me, usually twice a day. I meditate right when I wake up. It's like the first thing I do. And I meditate either at lunchtime, depending on how rough the day is, or a new one that I've started is when I get home from work so I can be present with uh, my wife. And because otherwise it's hard for me to fully shut it off.
Hmm.
So meditation, I have a pretty a strong like um, prayer system too. So like I pray to something out there, who knows what. And um, also hugely important, I've got a business coach,
Hmm.
which is every 2 weeks. Extremely helpful, especially around employee stuff. Right, when you're an entrepreneur coming in, your company starts to grow and grow and grow, and you now have people who like report to you, and how to convey tough information, how to give raises, how to let people go, like things that I just didn't really know how to do,
Hmm.
which caused a lot of stress and anxiety. Uh, so I've got a business coach which focuses on mindfulness. So like in those sessions, there's a lot of breathing techniques, there's a lot of meditation, there's a lot of going over specifics and goals and things like that.
Hmm.
And then also what I tell everybody, get yourself a good therapist, man. Get yourself a good one. Because if you want to go on this road, man, it's you know, it can be daunting. But I would say everyone's different. I mean, a lot of people have different thresholds. So who knows? Maybe this life is cake for some people. It's just hasn't been cake for me. And then the last thing is I've always worked out and gone to the gym, so it's not like a practice that I need to make myself do. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy running. I really enjoy going to the gym. So that would be um, probably the last piece of the puzzle there.
Oh. Uh, and you brought it up a little earlier when talking about the business coach. I mean, that's the one thing that I think people don't really talk about enough. Like the idea that like we're when we're doing this with e-commerce, and obviously you have people that you're in your how do I say it? Like you still have employees and you have everything that goes with it. But when you started, it was just you. You're doing a lot of
Yeah.
it yourself. So like it can be a lonely existence for us. And the idea that you brought up of the business coach and like masterminds in general, like obviously we're part of as well, are so helpful with that. And I think that's what I love in terms of what you were just saying. Like that if you think you can go it alone, you're probably not going to get that far. Like you have a business coach, you were saying, the therapist, all of that kind of stuff, where it's really helpful. And it, kind of along those lines, you were talking about talking to your business coach. What with the expansion that's happened, what would you say is the part of the business that you love the least, based off of that? Because it sounded like that was some of the stuff that you don't like.
Yeah. Um, man, the people stuff is the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone always says that, like, hey, like, getting your business to A to B isn't the hardest. It's, you know, learning how to work and train and grow people. And yeah, that's the hardest. Having tough conversations, constantly giving feedback, and frequently choosing between lose-lose situations, right? Like, I mean, I probably have to make one every day right now,
Mhm.
and that's tough. So my least favorite is like tough people conversations, but also my favorite is when I get to praise people for kicking ass, you know?
Mhm.
That's awesome. Like, I love watching people grow. I love watching people just get better at what they do. And that's exciting for me. I've never had that before until recently. And that's so fulfilling.
Um, so you're obviously you're just talking about those kind of lose situations. So in those situations, what's your I guess North Star is what Brian would always say. Like what helps you make those decisions when you're like, all right, this neither of these are a good option, but I got to do something here as the boss.
Yeah, I think for me, with the limited experience that I do have, is first I say, like, all right, give me some time to think about it.
Mhm.
And then I go ask people who know. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it works for me. I just luckily have some people in my network who are willing to take my calls. I've got some partners in the business who, are there to kind of help work through some stuff. So I ask, and that was one of my goals last year that I had kind of on my board above my bed, was ask for help,
Mhm.
because all you do is put yourself through more pain. And um, never once when someone's asked me an advice question have I ever been like, oh, I hate that they asked me that advice question, So I hope that other people feel the same way. And I hope I can pass that on too, to help other entrepreneurs who maybe haven't been through something. So I ask, and I get a feel on it, and then I weigh it with what I was thinking and go for it.
Well, and what you're saying too, I mean, like, um, we don't know what we don't know, and every time that we're in this, we're doing something that we've never done before, like every day. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying, I mean, makes sense. I mean, people that think that doesn't happen are just I don't understand them, if because it's what we do, and for you to, like we were just talking about the idea of masterminds. I mean, that's what they're there for. That's how you what the rising tide lifts all boats, all that kind of thing, where it's able to help you. Um, but
Yeah, I think one thing to add is, like, I just got off a call with someone who's kind of like an advisor to me. And this person's so far out of my league, it's crazy. Like, this person has sold like multi-million dollar companies a couple times.
Mhm.
And I was asking I'm thinking about creating an advisory board to help me with stuff like this, right? Like,
Okay.
the stuff I don't know how to handle, maybe
Mhm.
like raising money and things like that. And um, he was just saying, like, he's got the same thing. He's got someone he calls who's uber more successful than him,
Mhm.
right? Like, I guess I've never really met anybody who's like doing super well that isn't calling people and asking what to do
Mhm.
or for suggestions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's always like the way I always kind of looks. I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to try and learn from people that are much better than me, so I can learn from it and hopefully grow. So
Yeah.
yeah. So obviously you have a lot to do every day, and you're getting even crazier. How do you get the most out of your day?
It actually just changed for me a lot. Um, and it's fluid, meaning like depending on the time of the year, we've got a very seasonal business.
Mhm.
So things really pick up towards the fourth quarter, and then around Easter, Valentine's Day is coming up. So things change a little bit around those times. But the way that I organize my life is I'll start on a macro level. I've got a one place. I've got a Trello board that has everything in my life in it, from broken down to, so the way it works is the first part of it, or tab, or whatever you want to call it, is unsorted. So as things are going through my mind all day and new obligations and tasks and things, I'm just throwing them up from my phone, right? So everything kind of gets pushed into this black hole of stuff that needs to be done. And then every Sunday, I sort it based on uh, priority, time sensitivity, and importance. And then once everything's sorted, and I push emails as well that have tasks associated with them. They go in there as well. And then after everything's sorted on Sunday, I spend like 4 hours right now. It takes a while. I spend 4 hours and I block that stuff out in my week,
Mhm.
where like things that are important, I'll block out. But most importantly, the one thing that I learned from my business coach, and if anybody's watching this, this has been like the biggest takeaway for me, is I plan out my days before they start, or else I just feel totally unorganized and unsuccessful. But even then, I was having trouble feeling successful because I could never finish everything that I put on the list.
Mhm.
You know, it just always continued, right? Just never felt accomplished. So now on the bottom of my notebook, there's an area, it's called highlight. And in that area, there's the most important thing that I need to get done that day.
Mhm.
And I will not go to sleep without doing that thing. And once that is done, I have a feeling of completion and success. And that way I know at least like the one thing I needed to get done that day got done. And so I would say the highlight in my days list is really what has changed it for me.
Yeah. Nice. And I've referenced the one thing, obviously, the Brian's talked about numerous times, and is an amazing book. So since you brought it up, what's your most important thing right now?
Hmm. On my list of what I have to do before today is over, still. Normally I do it, I like to do it early, right? Get it out of the way. But I still have to do it. And we're switching uh, accounting firms. And I have to get this new accountant all set up in our Slack and all of our systems to make sure that they have access and everything going on. So I got to get that done today because we got to get to work on our uh, 2020 taxes and books.
Hmm. All right, cool, cool.
Yeah.
And this is something that I always want to know about, and you referenced obviously earlier the idea of fear is a big driver for you, but um, I know a lot of business owners deal with like overwhelm. They deal with a negative mentality at certain points in their life, or like it could be in their day. Honestly, I know I kind of deal with this where it's hard to get stuff accomplished. When you're in those situations, what helps you get over it and get back so you can overcome whether it's a like a setback, like just something that you've been trying to get through and you just can't. What helps you in those situations?
It's such a good question.
Hmm.
And it's so important. 'Cause I don't think people really who aren't in this life understand really the mental beatdown at times and the sacrifices. And yeah, sometimes I just think back and just a lot to take in. How I would answer that question is, for me, and how things have progressed because more things are happening, there's more people involved in the businesses. I have those moments every day, just throughout the day.
Hmm.
And I'm always looking for new solutions to help me. I'd like to say come back to reality,
Hmm.
because that's truthfully what it is, right? We get so worked up in our in our lives and what's going on that it's almost like a self-obsession, right? It's like there's nothing else existing in this earth right now other than Lonnie's problems, right? That's kind of the thought. It's like this is the end of the world. I can't take it. Like this person is doing this person's doing that, and you're just full of this, like, I like to call it like a self-centered fear.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've got a few things that I do, but the most important thing for me to remember is that it passes.
Mhm.
So when I'm in that place, that happens to me all the time, is I try just first off, like acknowledging that it's happening and not make any decisions in that moment, or not send that email, or not send that Slack or that text message, or, you know, that can wait.
Mhm.
So not I guess not causing damage, right? And then the second piece is, yeah, I think there are definitely some tactics and they're different for everybody. Me, if I'm not in panic, because I think there's overwhelm and stress, and then the next level up is panic, which you've probably experienced, I've experienced, like, you know, for us, give you an example, like, you know, you send a whole truckload of boxes and they're lost for 2 hours, right? That's panic. You know, it's like with panic, we'll start at panic. When it's panic, for me, there's no breathing through that, there's no meditating. It actually is like a total different mental state. So that's I go to like jumping jacks, or I'll run, right?
Mhm.
Like just quickly, like I gotta like move around, I gotta get outside of it. If it's just the overwhelm and angry and frustrated and negative, I typically meditate, and if I can get myself to do it, do a few breathing exercises. But I think as of recently, sometimes I'll give myself permission just to go take an hour off.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Go drive around, go home for an hour. Like pretty much, I'm probably not supposed to swear in here, but just fuck off for an hour. You know what I mean? And sometimes that'll help me get back to where I need to be.
Mhm.
But it's different every day. But I think the one thing that people do confuse here, and I've just recently found out from my coach, is like there's a big difference between panic and overwhelm, anger, you know, those types of things. And I think they have different solutions.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. And I know like a lot of that I kind of dealt with too. Um, Not so much on the panic side because yeah, when you're in panic mode, you're freaking out. But I'll do the same thing where if it's like I'll take sometimes I'll take the day off, or if it depending on
Yeah.
the time of day, or I need to take some time and veg out, kind of whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
like taking time away, like it does have a good impact. Like when your mind is not in the right place, like get away from the problem sometimes and kind of reset. Um, I know that helps me a lot too. Um, but only a little bit of time here. I want to make sure I value your time. But
Yeah.
congratulations, by the way. I know that you recently got married. So,
Yes. Yeah.
well, one of the things I want to ask is you had talked about the idea of kind of shutting it off and kind of meditating at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
what to you, what is a work-life balance?
Mm. Well, I could just tell you my schedule. I don't know if it's good work life balance or not. I take one day a week off. That's Saturdays. It used to be none, so it's a huge improvement for me. So I'll take it. I think everybody, looking back, I think everyone needs at least one day a week off.
Mhm.
And then I'm typically out of work by 6 or 7, just depending on the day. And I'm up pretty early working, and sometimes I like to go to the gym before. But when I'm home now, I would say like when I was single, you know, you can work into the wee hours of the night, and sometimes it's nice. Your creativity comes out, and sometimes you do shit work too, and it just is no good. But yeah, when I get home, I'm there. And I think so let's say I get home at 7, 3 good, because we go to sleep around 10,
Hmm.
3 good hours of present time is way more valuable than 5 hours of not present time.
Hmm.
And that's kind of my commitment to my wife is like I've started being present when I'm there, and if I can't shake what's on my mind from work, we talk about it,
Hmm.
and that really helps. And one thing I guess for anybody who has a significant other, we started this thing that I was recommended by another entrepreneur who I look up to and call for advice and different things like that, was having a weekly meeting with my wife
Hmm.
where we go through everything. So we've got it's she was so pissed about this. It's a Trello board
Hmm.
with activities we want to do, tasks we need to get done, places we want to travel, birthdays coming up, calendar stuff, things that we're grateful about with each other, all different types of things.
Hmm.
And it's so wonderful. So every Saturday at 10 a.m., we have our meeting. And like it helps us get on the same page.
Hmm.
Because I was struggling with the fact that like things needed to be done, and she would tell me like when I got off work or the one day a week that I had off, which was Saturday, and it just felt like all like I just couldn't get a second to like not be thinking about things that needed to be done.
Hmm.
And now we've got a place for it. It's the one time a week. Throughout the week when we're thinking about stuff, we throw it up there. So that has been a wonderful way to make the time that we have together so much more valuable.
Hmm. Well, that's very interesting. I heard something similar before. I don't think I've heard that kind of a thing. Um, but I think one of the things that you said too, which was really good, is being able to kind of get stuff out, like more than anything. Because I know on my end, when you've got like you always feel like you've got 5 million things to do every day, whether it's business or personal, and
Yeah.
it's hard to sleep. It's hard to relax when you don't get it out. So you being able to do that on a Trello board, and honestly, your wife being going along with it too. um,
Oh, she was not into it. I said, let's do it for 2 weeks, and if you hate it, we'll scrap it.
uh,
And because she was like, why are you turning our relationship into like a business tool? And I was like, I promise, like just 2 weeks, give me 2 weeks. And now she loves it
mm,
because like everything's so organized, everything's so dialed in. We actually accomplish things together,
mm,
or they're written down so we get to look at them being accomplished. It's been really helpful.
mm. I think without calling my wife out, she'd probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
We got started with the Trello board.
Yeah. It's worth a shot. I
Yeah.
just, hey, 2 weeks and all your misery is refunded. You know what I mean?
so, I know Brian's talked a lot about like your why and everything like that. Do you think your purpose has changed since you got married, like, or is it still the same?
No, man.
No?
It's it's right there. Now I just like, I mean, I always had an amazing partner
Hmm.
in it. So now it's just like even I guess you could say a tighter bond. I think we had an amazing bond.
Hmm.
It adds the aspect in of like things outside of work, right? Like family, which I'm excited to have one day. And right now we've got a very small family. It's our puppy Mozzie and my wife.
Hmm.
Um, but I think part of our why was, always to be a team and those types of things. So I think that was there before, and it just kind of maybe solidified a little bit. And the one thing that's so wonderful about her is that she believes in me when I don't.
Hmm.
Like kind of like those times where you talked about where I'm like, I don't think I can do it anymore. Like I just, I can't handle it. Like, she's the one who's going to tell me it's going to be all right. And that's what's wonderful about her. So
Yeah,
Good
and
question.
that's one of the things that I think doesn't really get talked about enough in terms of the importance of your spouse in terms of
Yeah.
your success. Like I know I said it on numerous times. I was actually a guest on a friend of mine's podcast where we specifically talked about that idea. And I know that 100% I would not be in the position I am in terms of my business or my life if it wasn't for my wife. It's just
Yeah.
it. I am of the mindset that you cannot be successful and if you have a relationship with somebody where you don't complement each other in that way and you're not able to really work with them in terms of the business, it's just I don't think it's going to work personally.
Yeah, or they don't want that for you, right? That would be really hard if there's just different directions in where you both want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think not having alignment on that is could be really tough for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. I don't want to keep you too much longer here, but this was a question. I was on a friend of mine's podcast and he brought up this question. So I loved it so much, I pretty much asked everyone else since. I wanted to ask you, what's your definition of success?
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting question. And it's a hard question.
Hmm.
And I think it's super complex because I think our lives are split up into so many different things, right? Like my work isn't my life, my wife isn't my life, my hobbies aren't my life. You can be successful in so many different areas of your life. And I would say for me personally, uh, a few of the deciding factors for success would be one, I've always been a creative and I've always wanted to create something that lasts, like a brand or a product that people know by name and use and it helps them and say in a way where it's like, oh, I love Bunny James. Like
Mhm.
finally, there are gifts that I can send to everyone I know with allergies or for myself and like just really providing an amazing service that people love. Like when they talk about it, like I want people to, love it and enjoy it. The way that people talk about Lululemon or they talk about, whatever their favorite product is. And I'd love to create something that just brings more joy and creativity and funness and lightheartedness to people's lives. And I think the second part of that is philanthropy. Like I'd love to give it all away. Like that would feel me is to like have a really good outcome in business and then just begin to give it back in a way that like I find really fun and
Mhm.
helpful and then I think the last piece and probably the most important piece of it all and something I've been searching for my whole life is like I just want to feel okay, man.
Mhm.
Like I've been chasing something my whole life uh and I think that's kind of it, like kind of that business side of things. Um but I just really would I would feel successful if I was just like content and calm in my life and I was slow and I thought about things and I spent a lot of time reading and enjoying just kind of that overwhelming feeling of content
Mhm.
is something that I'm looking to get to probably from mindfulness, right? I don't think that comes with money or like financial success, but
Right.
that's something that I'm trying to achieve.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know like a lot of people that I kind of looked up to, I guess, in terms of like their billion-dollar company, people like Tom Bellew is one where like they have the idea that yeah, I could be a millionaire, but that doesn't lead to contentness or fulfillment or anything like that. That comes from a different place. and ultimately that's not about money. So yeah, I think what you're saying is great, and obviously everyone's different in terms of what their definition is. I love what you were just saying. But I don't want to keep you anymore. I want to value your time, but I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today, sharing some of your story, your expert insight. It was so great talking to you today. I wanted to ask you, how can our listeners find out more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, personally, you can go to lonnyjames.com. I've just kind of got a little plethora of stuff that I've been involved in and whatnot. And so you can take a look at that. There's a lot of stuff around, the struggles that come along with being an entrepreneur and things of that sort. And then from a business standpoint, check out bunnyjames.com, BUNNYJAMES.com. And you'll get to see what we do and what we ship out and all that good stuff.
And we'll definitely have links as well, so everyone can check it out. Thank you again, Lonnie. This was a lot of fun talking to you, and hopefully it helps a lot of people out. So talk to everyone next time on Morning Market Machine. All right, bye.
Thank you. Have a great day. Appreciate you having me.